Hey, it's Lee Loughnane with Chicago, and you are listening to The Other Side of the Bell.
Hello, and welcome to The Other Side of the Bell, a podcast dedicated to everything trumpet, brought to you by Bob Reeves Brass. We'll help you take your trumpet playing to the next level. I'm John Snell, trumpet specialist here at Bob Reeves Brass, and I'll be your host for this episode.
Whoa, hold on, John.
What? Who's that?
Hold on a sec. This is Vinny Shashelski, and actually, surprise, we're going to turn the tables on you today, and I'm going to host, and you are going to be in that cherry hot seat answering all the questions.
Oh my gosh. This is like, today on a very special episode of Blossom. Well, Vinny, I mean, first of all, you're looking great.
Thank you.
I'm nervous. I'm excited to do this, and the leverage you have on me to get me to do this. I've been honored since we started doing this podcast. I've gotten several emails asking for me to be on here, and I've always politely declined. And somehow, something about you got leverage on me to actually sit down and do an interview. So
I think it was relentless determination and tenacity, because we talked about it a couple of times at the Atom Fest, where you and I were both in attendance, and you said, "Yeah, call me in a couple of weeks and we'll figure it out." And dang, well, I'll tell you what, emails and texts and calls and arm twisting, and now we're here. Here we go.
And here we are. I'm nervous. I'm excited. But first, let's get to a word from our sponsor and some trumpet news. Today's episode is brought to you by Bob Reeves Brass, who share your passion for creating extraordinary music. You know that feeling when your instrument just clicks and the music flows effortlessly? That's what Bob Reeves Brass has been helping customers do since 1968. We've helped brass musicians like you achieve their dreams by ensuring their equipment is always in perfect harmony. We know you want to immerse yourself in the art of music making, and we're here to remove any barriers between you and your creative vision. Bob Reeves Brass is truly your one-stop shop for everything you need to fuel your passion and create music that touches hearts and souls. So go ahead, let us help you elevate your sound to new heights. Don't wait another moment to elevate your musical journey with Bob Reeves Brass. Connect with us at bobreeves.com, shoot us an email at info@bobreeves.com, and keep up with the latest news on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter at Bob Reeves Brass. Embrace your passion for music and let Bob Reeves Brass be your partner in creating the extraordinary. Well, let's delay this interview as long as possible. One of my first trumpet teachers, Bill Bing, always said, preparing for a recital and the days leading up to your recital is like the days before your own beheading. and I think I'd rather maybe play the Tomasi next week than talk about myself. But I'm in good hands. I'm excited. Normally, I talk about shop goings on and, Ulven mutes and Shire's horns and guard bags and trumpet mouthpieces. Since you're joining us and spending your time to interview me, Vinny, why don't you talk a little bit about what you've been doing? How Vinny and the Hitman and what you've been doing?
Man, it's been a great year. I mean, full of music, and I just posted yesterday, full of music and joy and love, laughter. A couple weeks ago, I played with Frankie Valli. A lot of guys have done that gig, but the special thing about this was it was in my mom's hometown.
Oh, cool.
And we were going to try and surprise her, but it's literally impossible to surprise her. So a couple weeks before, I said, "Hey, I'm coming up for the show." And she was thrilled. She was sitting directly in front of the horn section by happenstance, about 10 rows back. And just once it got dark and the lights would go out there, I saw this beautiful head of silver hair and a big toothy smile. She was very happy to see Frankie and her boy. And then right after that, I went back up to Ocean City and played with some very old friends that most I've known since 1980 in a little reunion band. And then when I came back here, hit the ground running. I have done, with trumpet stacks, trumpets and flugelhorns, 4 passes of trumpet, 5 passes of trumpet, 3 or 4 passes of flugelhorn, 6 brutal gospel tunes over the last couple of days, but they are unbelievably funky and fire and deliver the message in a big way. And a couple singer-songwriters sing. So I've been busier than a one-armed paper hanger, as they say.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. And Frankie Valli, I mean, he's up there, right? He's 93, 94, something like that.
He's 91, and this
91.
is the the finale tour that he's going to extend by a year. He's like the Energizer Bunny, man. I don't know how he does it, and the band is killing. And
What
the
fun.
production, yeah, it's really great.
And what a cool thing to do for your mom. I'm sure she was proud of you playing in the
Well,
section.
she's a huge fan of Frankie. When I played with him years ago at the Ryman, I got one of those Hatch prints, and gave it to her and my dad as a gift, which she gave back to me once she moved. And I've got it hanging on my wall. You can't really see it, but it's over my right hand shoulder. And yeah, she was a huge fan of him, but a much bigger fan of the trumpet player that day.
How cool. And then Vinny and the Hitman, you got anything, any projects in the work or anything you want to share there?
Well, we're putting out, about a song a month, and we've started this Comfort series, which was inspired by Yo-Yo Ma. During COVID, he just started playing these classical melodies, familiar classical melodies. And he said, look, we're all kind of confused and hurting and by ourselves. And so if this 3 minutes of music brings you some comfort, I'm happy. And through that inspiration, we started doing some of those. So those are really beautiful. And, we're putting out a bunch of stuff. We have, Jeff Coffin from the Dave Matthews Band is, doing a song with us coming up. That'll be coming out in the next month or so. And then, early September, we're going in and doing. And when I say star-studded, I mean, wow. The guys that are playing on this record as guest artists with us, it's a heroes list of players in LA and all over the country that are going to come in and toot some notes. And so we're doing a Christmas record then, and that'll be out for this season. Thank you for asking, John. I appreciate
How cool.
it.
How cool.
Yeah.
Well, what fun. Yeah. We'll keep us in the loop. And then for those folks listening, Vinny, you were our special guest. I looked this up because I swear, we're at episode 130 something. I thought you'd be like episode 110. Seems like yesterday, 115, something like that. You were episode 93.
93.
So that's been a few years already. So folks listening, if you haven't heard Vinny's story, that was an amazing interview. Talked a lot about positivity. I think you were doing the Facebook group back then or helping out with the
Positive trumpeters worldwide. Yeah.
And you were just starting Vinny and the Hitman at that, I think around that point. So it's come such a long way. So check out episode 93, scroll down a little bit in Spotify and hear Vinny in the hot seat. Well, thanks for sharing all that stuff with us.
Thank
you. Shop staying busy here. I'm going to keep it short because our guest today is rather long-winded. So with that being said, let's get to our special guest today, me.
John Snell is the co-owner of Bob Reeves Brass, where he's been a vital team member since 2001. After an extensive apprenticeship, he became the company's lead valve alignment technician, personally working on thousands of instruments. Since 2010, John has also managed the business, guiding its growth while maintaining its reputation for uncompromising craftsmanship. An accomplished trumpet player, John has performed with ensembles including the California Brass Ensemble, the North Ridge Brass Quintet, the San Bernardino Symphony, and as lead trumpet in the big band of barristers, a busy big band made up of lawyers, judges, and law students. He hosts 3 popular podcasts, The Other Side of the Bell, The Trombone Corner, and The Horn Signal, interviewing top brass musicians worldwide. John regularly presents clinics on trumpet, equipment, and the mindset across the U.S., Europe, Japan, and Australia. Hey, everybody. It's Vinny Shashelski here. I know this is a little bit of a different voice for you. You're used to hearing the basso profundo of my guest today. I was just telling my guest that I think this will be the most listened to podcast that he's ever been a part of here on The Other Side of the Bell. It's my pleasure to introduce to you the normal host of this podcast, John Snell. Hey, John, how are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm nervous.
You should be. You should.
I'm in the hot seat.
I have like 50 questions that you've never heard in your life before. So look out, pal.
Second valve. It's second valve.
It is second valve.
Yeah. F sharp. Last I checked.
Unless you're mad at the violin players, and then it's first and third valve. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, anyway, John, it's really good to see you, and thank you for listening to the idea. I just think it's a great idea. I think you are, as we talked about earlier, the enigma. I think people would be really interested to hear about your history, and we're going to dig into everything. Starting with a question that I may or may not have heard before, but did you find the trumpet, or did the trumpet find you? Tell us about how you started playing.
Yeah. I mean, the trumpet definitely found me. In fact, I think I have a picture of me as like a 1-year-old or 1.5-year-old with my dad's piccolo trumpet sitting on my lap, and I'm playing it. Strangely enough, with a much better embouchure than I have today. It's been all downhill since then.
You had much more time to practice back then.
My dad is a professional trumpet player, and he's been on the podcast a few years ago for a special Father's Day interview episode. But as soon as I could breathe, he had a trumpet in my hands. And the longer story is a little more convoluted. I started in kindergarten around 4 or 5, and it didn't work out. I was playing. I remember one time I just broke down in tears, and I put the trumpet away in the closet, and that was it. So maybe that was maybe I shouldn't have. The subtitle of this episode will be "Don't Let This Happen to You."
A cautionary tale.
A cautionary tale. No, my dad was teaching me and trying to, and that relationship of being told, well, you're doing this wrong, no matter how caring and correctly my dad tried to teach me at that age, it didn't work. And now, fortuitously, now I'm in the same relationship with my son, getting him to play. But so 4th grade came around, and it was time to pick a school instrument for the school band, and I wanted to play violin. And my mom and dad said, well, we have this nice con director trumpet. We don't really own a violin, so why don't you play that again? And I was like, well, I had kind of a traumatic experience a few years ago. And they said, no, well, let's try it again. And if you don't like it, once you play in the band, because we think you'll have a more fun, more of a fun time once you get into the band and they're teaching you. And sure enough, they were correct. And so I started Jackie Dwight, Mrs. Dwight, my first orchestra, 4th grade orchestra teacher. She was just a gem. And to think in an elementary school, we had a district-wide honors. It wasn't even an honors orchestra. It was all of the elementary schools came together, and there's 100 and some odd kids playing strings and woodwinds and brass and stuff. And a number of my friends from that 4th grade class went on to be teachers and professional musicians. And it all started with my elementary teacher.
And now to her. And yeah, no kidding, man. Shout out to her for sure. We'll have to let her know that this thing is dropping, and that she is credited with the long downhill slide that you've explained.
Yeah.
And so I'm keenly interested, because my dad was a trumpet player when he was a kid. Mm-hmm. And when I brought the bugle home from the Drum and Bugle Corps, he taught me taps and reveille the first night. And by the end of the first week, he said to my mom, we're going to have to get this kid trumpet lessons, because he's better than I ever was already. So tell me about that dynamic. I mean, you went into it a little bit. Tell me about the dynamic between you and your dad. Was there eye rolling and God, Dad, and all that kind of stuff?
No, and I don't want to make it worse than it actually was. And really the fault was on my side. My dad's cheering somewhere in the world right now, because I just put that vibe out there. I actually admitted that I was wrong.
Your wife is too.
Yeah. But no, seriously, like he did everything he could to ensure my success, in terms of getting me the equipment I needed, getting me the books I needed, and trying to communicate through my thick skull what I needed, to have fun playing, to make music, but also to get better at the trumpet. And ultimately, what worked was him getting private teachers for me, which, because he was a professional in LA, he had, the best money could buy, teach me, and they still couldn't get through my thick skull. but I did start progressing and was able to go on that route. And then, and this is what was just brilliant on my dad's part, he found that he could teach me through playing duets. So even at a very, very young age, he would throw duets in front of me and just play with me. And, if I had problems with syncopations, he'd put the Amsden duets down. Or if I had problems with this or key signatures, he loved duets, and he had a music library. So every day was something new. It also was working on my sight reading, intonation and things, subconsciously, holistically. I had no idea what he was doing. It was fun playing with Dad until we got to Mel Broyles, and then it stopped being fun. That was torture. But so that, all throughout, middle school, high school, college, we'd spend hours playing duets sometimes, or reading music and things like that. And then every once in a while he would try to sneak something in, like, hey, you're doing this. And then I would break down in tears, immediately. That was triggered. Dad, I want you to love me. I do love you, but you're sharp,
I think that the best teachers always find a way, having just been at the Adam Fest and talking to all those guys, Carl and Charlie and just, Greg and all the cats, Kyle Gregory, who's a good friend of mine, comes over the house and schools me every once in a while. He was a student of Mr. Adam for almost 20 years. He is like the closest degree to almost anybody. Mm-hmm. Mr. Adam would never let you know that he was fixing you. He would just find something, and I imagine this is what your dad was doing too. He would hear something in your playing, switch books that would address that. You were learning how to play, lead or first and second, and then being able to follow in the pitch. And I can't imagine what an awesome memory that is, aside from the occasional crying jag.
The occasional, we all have that, Yeah,
100%, man, 100%. So tell me now, during that time, who were your teachers in LA?
Yeah, so I started with William Bing, who was I would call him a Jimmy Stamp student, but he studied with everybody. Fabulous player here in LA, and a wonderful mentor to me. And again, and I'm not just being down on myself, but he got me going. I did the stamp routine. I did buzzing. What was great about Bill was he exposed me to so many things. This was like late middle school into the first few years of high school. The foundation was the stamp routine and the buzzing, and kind of expanding up and down into pedals and higher up, buzzing and with the piano, and then playing the exercises on the trumpet. But he had me transcribing. He had me playing solos. He had me doing classical literature and solos. He had me doing, it felt like every week I was getting a new book that he found, because he still studied, and that was one of my first kind of eye-opening things. I coming into my lesson, and he's got this big stack of papers. I was like, Bill, what are those? He's like, oh, I just had this lesson with Bobby Shue. And we went through all of this, all of his breathing techniques and things like that. I want to show you some stuff. And, here I am. It's funny. I thought Bill was old then, but, it's all relative. Sorry, Bill. I didn't think you were that old, but, I was like, what is this professional trumpet player doing taking lessons? Like, doesn't he not know how to breathe? Or things like that. And then that started opening my eyes. Like, he's just grabbing, he's still learning. He's still grabbing. What are these people doing that, even though they're playing in sections together or recording together. So I learned the Shue wedge breath that week and started applying that. Just amazing things to kind of open up my eyes to different directions and styles and thoughts of playing. Thanks to Bill, just fortuitously, he hosted Timothy Dockschitzer on a rare visit to the U.S. This was I believe, I don't know if the USSR was still around. That might have fallen, but it was still very difficult for folks from Russia to come out, especially to work. And he hosted Timothy Dockschitzer for a master class. And I remember he got my dad and I in on a joint lesson, even though they were completely booked, because he was the host. So I got, even though I didn't understand a thing and it was really early on in my playing, I still have Timothy's sound, demonstrating in my mind. And I've never heard anything like it since. So kind of things like that. Bill was just really great at exposing me to so many different ideas. So I started with him, and then towards the end, and another thing, credit to Bill, he knew when it was time. There was a point where he said, I don't, you're not getting it, John. He didn't say it like that, but he knew there was not a connection there in terms of either my motivation or my lack of just going all in with him. And I know he took that personally, and maybe the dynamic with him and my dad were great friends and colleagues. And, I'm my dad's child, and he wants to make sure I'm going on into great things. And so he handed me off to Bob Karen, was another great player out here and teacher. And Bob kind of took the reins, I think studying with Bill for, I think about 3 years, like the stamp stuff really didn't click with me. I think I have some reasons, theories of why now, many years later. Bob Karen took more of he studied with Arnold Jacobs, started to study with Vacchiano and Juilliard, and also a podcast guest on here, so you can hear his story.
Yeah.
So we did more of Chicago school stuff, the wind and song stuff, a lot of French, like Paris Conservatory stuff. He introduced me to a lot of the French etudes and boats on broad, and those kinds of sounds and different harmonics and things started getting me interested. Yeah. Different ways of using your wind. And he really got me going, thankfully, into college in probably about 6 or 8 months, really got my playing going to a level, I feel like it should have been considering my age.
Let me interrupt, John, real quick. It's fascinating. I think it would help some people, especially anybody that's struggling with getting the Jimmy Stamp stuff locked in. Can you briefly go over the reasons why you think maybe it wasn't working for you at the time?
Yeah, well, it made me tight. The buzzing made me tight.
Okay.
And I think it's I know it's because I was doing it wrong, because there's obviously plenty of examples of Jimmy Stamp students out there, Bill being one of them, Malcolm McNabb, et cetera, Roy Poper, just off the top of my head.
Nobody any good, really,
Yeah. So, obviously it's me, not the method. But no, I was doing it. I was a tense individual anyway, and I had to manipulate to make the buzz work, and that manipulation made me even tighter. Right. And then, funny enough, once I got rid of the rest of my tension, thanks to years of therapy, getting my head straight, I realized, okay, well, I don't have to have all this tension to buzz. And Roy Poper also kind of unlocked this with me. He said, he goes for a fuzzy buzz, what he calls a fuzzy buzz. And he thinks an octave lower than the note he's actually buzzing. And, I started doing that. Not that I'm a diehard buzzer anymore, or really went into that. I started for about a year. I did stamp exercises much later in my life with that concept, and it clicked. Good. I was like, oh, I am finding the center. Oh, I'm not starting the trumpet with a pinch sound and all this tension and already tired because I'm trying to manipulate the mouthpiece to sound, et cetera, et cetera. So again, my thick skull was the issue, because I know Bill Bing and even Bob Karen and my later teachers tried everything they could under the sun.
Listen, John, it's a trumpet podcast, right? So the whole wackadoodle mindset and tension and all that stuff, it's kind of, you don't even have to speak about it because everybody knows.
We've all been there. Yeah.
Playing with your shoulders as earmuffs never pays off. And that's the first thing that happens. If you run into, if you're going down the road and you see a lick coming up and you're like, oh, what in the world? First thing that happens is you get tensed up and you get jammed up. And so that's not at all uncommon. Who was next in the lineage of teaching?
Yeah, so I went through high school, and funny enough, I started gigging thanks to a little nepotism. So I was working quite a bit, probably my senior year in high school. It started off with my dad having me sit in third trumpet in a brass quintet, kind of shadowing for mall gigs and Christmas gigs and things like that. Mm-hmm. He used to do some larger brass ensemble stuff, lighting of Christmas trees and recitals and things. And he would throw me down on eighth trumpet. And I actually start getting paid for it. And then when you're junior and my allowance was probably $3 a week, and then you're making $150 for an hour's worth of work playing your instrument. I was like, wow, what is this? Yeah. And then I'm at my first Easter gig. I made several $100s to play hymns. I was like, what is this? Now I'm taking all of my friends at high school. Some of them had minimum wage jobs, but a lot of them didn't work. And I was like, hey, we're all going to Fuddruckers. Burgers are on me.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah.
It was like, so I really got that bug thanks to my dad trusting me and getting me on some of that stuff.
Pretty awesome.
And I started then networking, and people started calling me that weren't my dad, which was great. So that was already in motion late in high school. And then when the time came to go to college, and I love this story, I didn't want to leave town. I thought about USC. I think I actually applied there, but it came down to Cal State Northridge, where my dad went, and Cal State Long Beach, where my dad didn't go. And then Bill Bing was the teacher at Northridge, who I had already studied with, mm-hmm. and I wouldn't have minded studying with him again. And then there was Charlie Davis down at Cal State Long Beach. And I didn't really know a lot about Charlie. Certainly knew nothing about the Atom stuff. That was all completely foreign to me. I just knew he was a commercial player. He was a lead player. And I was like, well, that's kind of the direction I want to go. My high school band director, one of them, Tom Whaley, introduced me to this. Well, he introduced me to all kinds of things. He gave me my first Maynard Ferguson album when I was a freshman. I had no idea who Maynard Ferguson was, and some teenagers, they revolt and they do their thing by, hanging out on the corner and doing drugs, or my revolting teenager years was listening to Maynard Ferguson and then Bill Chase, and then and he introduced me to like Stevie Wonder and horn section stuff, and David Sanborn, and we actually had a rock ensemble in high school and started playing Chicago.
Amazing.
Does anyone really know what time it is? And he hands me the solo. I was like, what is this music? What is this stuff? And then Jerry Hay. He introduced me to Sea Wind horns and, Gary Grant and Jerry Hay and those guys. And I was like, this, there's something here. I enjoy doing this more than playing the Haydn. So I made the decision, school that my dad graduated from, or Cal State Long Beach with Charlie Davis, who can hopefully help me in the commercial world. Mm-hmm. And I signed up. I registered, I got all my classes, and, I was like, I'm doing my own thing. I'm making my own, I'm going to be my own person. Right. And that summer, after I had already registered and committed, they hired my dad as the brass professor.
Oh, no.
Hey, John, guess what? I'm going to be teaching brass pedagogy, and I'm going to be teaching the trumpet choir, and I'm going to be running the brass ensemble.
And now you're 5 years old again, and you're like, oh no!
But there's even more. There's even more, because when they hired him as adjunct faculty, they said, even part-time professors get free tuition. So if you want to get your master's at the same time you're teaching here, you can too.
Oh my gosh.
So here I am coming as a freshman, just turned 18. I'm an adult. I'm on my own, going to the school that my dad had no affiliation with. And he's a professor on two of my classes, and I'm down hanging out with my friends in the practice room, and he's walking by with his attaché case. It's like what Rodney Dangerfield's Back to School.
Oh my God, John, this explains so much, man. This is the kind of stuff that people want to hear. That is amazing. How did you navigate that? I guess
I make things worse than they are. I mean, we have a deep respect and love for each other.
Oh, I can tell. Everybody can tell that. No, I know you're just, yeah.
And it worked. Like, and my dad respected my space, and he was very tough on me on the classes I took with him.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. I needed a good kick in the behind sometimes, because he held everyone at that school, and in any of his classes he taught, either there, he's taught a couple other schools as well, including Northridge. He held everyone to a higher standard than I think a lot of college folks, especially college folks at a commuter school or a state school.
Yeah.
He ran his brass ensemble at the university like he ran his professional ensemble with players.
You have 4 years to go from being an 18-year-old hotshot to, when you're 21 or 22, to sitting next to your dad on a session or sitting next to him on a gig, like not one that he hires you for. And so, I've always believed that that's the way to go. You you can't baby them, because they're going to get out on the gig. And if they're sitting in a prototypical trumpet section, there's going to be some nice people, and there's going to be some people that may not be as nice about their critique. And, if you don't play that quarter note on 4 short, I'm going to take you out on the break and teach you a lesson, that kind of stuff. So, man,
exactly.
that was a great training ground. Like, hey, John, I want you to stay after class. Yes, sir. And you stay after class, and he goes, hey, you want to go to Burger King and have some lunch? I can see that. I can totally see that. I don't want to show favoritism, but I'll buy today. So
yeah, but it was great. And, we had a lot of great times down there together. A lot of my friends down there are still close friends with my dad. They built that bond with him. And a lot of them, even the ones that kind of resisted his standard setting at the time, have written or called me or called my dad and thanked him, because now in their later mature years, they realized how the life lessons they learned from him set them up later on. So I'll admit, it was cool having him around.
Yeah. Good for you, man. That's great.
And so he was there. And then Charlie, oh my gosh, I can't say enough about Charlie. We had so many great lessons. I mean, I remember my first lesson sitting in his, I was fortunate. So I lived maybe 10 minutes from Charlie, and both of us commuted down to Long Beach, maybe an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, depending on traffic. And Charlie at the time had 13 or 14 students. He was still really busy in the studios and touring and stuff with Lionel Hampton and whoever, Seth MacFarlane and a million other people. So he only went down to Long Beach one day, and it was a 13-hour day. And early on in our lessons, when I told him I lived in Burbank, right across the, 10 minutes away, he said, well, why don't you just come over to my house? Which was great because number one, I didn't, there's stories of when one of us wouldn't practice, lesson number 7 was a terrible lesson. And then one of my buddies would come in as lesson number 8, and Charlie would just be,
Oh, yeah.
So I never had that experience, and Charlie was always relaxed at home, but it also meant we could stretch out. He didn't have someone coming in after me.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times our lessons would go till 10:30, 11 at night.
Wow.
And I would need it. He would really work on me, on my tension and my sound production, and just developing a foundation through the Adam routine of listening, really visualizing the sound you want to get. And it was the seeds of also believing in yourself, which is huge in the Adam world. It's huge everywhere, but especially.
But that's a big Mr. Adam thing. And I never took a lesson with him, but I'm gleaning from all the people that studied with him and then studied with first generation. I took a lesson with Carl. I hang out with Kyle a bunch, and they're just as much about, being a good human being as they are but it's all about the sound and capturing that sound that's in your head. That Charlie, I can't imagine sitting next to Charlie and having him play and then trying to match that, because his sound is as big as a truck, man.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
Lord.
I mean, fortunately we have several recordings with examples of that sound, but it doesn't quite capture the sound in the room, you know?
Yeah, no.
And actually that did run me into trouble, because I was trying to compete with him when we were trading off,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And again, I wasn't listening to what he was telling me. I was just reacting and saying, well, that's the sound I want. And then I assumed to get that sound, you had to work hard.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't make that distinction until later, where I realized, no, it looks like he's working hard, maybe. And even more so, it sounds like, in order to get that volume and that range, that's got to just be like lifting 5,000 pounds. And it's not.
It's not.
And it's not. But I definitely did make inroads in terms of my endurance and my sound production that I use today. I mean, it was an amazing time with Charlie. And oh God, we had some. I remember coming in the end of the day. I've got beat up by rehearsals. I'm a head case. I'd show up and we'd start just buzzing the lead pipe and maybe getting through the first long tones, and then Charlie would look at me and kind of, "What? You okay, John?"
Oh,
I'm trying. Charlie's like, "You want some ribs?"
Nice.
You know, so I mean, like a number of our lessons would be, look, John, you're a mess. Like, you playing the trumpet another hour is not going to do you anything. You need to go have a beer and eat some ribs. And we drive over to a local place, and have dinner, you know, and we just talk about music or life or dogs or whatever.
Yeah.
So he was really intuitive in terms of what I needed. But I'm still tough. You know, he didn't sugarcoat anything. And just like my dad, thankfully I was used to that. You know, he held everyone to a standard of, you know, he knew what someone's potential was, and he knew the potential in the person was more than what they thought. So
that's awesome.
Really tried to pull everything out.
I think if you're going to be sitting in a section next to him, and he is, as he did often, is up playing high Q flat, and if you're not focused and there, you see Gracie, she just got on.
Hey, Gracie.
That's Gracie. She's a good studio dog until I start playing high, and then she voices her opinion with a great verve. She's probably, John, on about 50 records. I keep waiting for her residual checks to come in August on the special payment, but I haven't seen them yet. So
I love it.
Yeah. But you know, having a limited amount of experience with Charlie, I love the fact that, first of all, he can play, he can still play, you know, and he's just very direct. He picked up one of my horns at the Adam Fest before you aligned it and said, "You're having to push up to this and this and that and the other thing and blah, 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 blah." And then, you know, played it afterwards, and he said, "That's fixed. Never mind." So good job. So you graduated from college?
Beach. Yeah, I did. I did make a detour, which, I mean, not to just go through my whole.
That's why we're here.
David Attenborough, or no, who's the film guy that does the documentaries? Ken Burns, Ken Burns version. and then in 1993, but no, and this is really like a big turning point in my life for several reasons. I was done with Long Beach. I love Charlie. I loved a lot of my colleagues there, some of my professors, but something in me is like, I need a change. And it was the best decision of my life. It was a very last minute decision. I think it was like the first day of winter break in between semesters. I just said, I need to transfer. I wouldn't recommend that to anyone because once I actually started the transfer process, I realized I hadn't taken any GE classes. I'd really only taken music classes, and I needed certain English or some, a few things to actually transfer. Otherwise, I have to start over again. Everything happens for a reason. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to take a semester off. I worked part-time at a computer place. I could put in some more hours, save up some more money, I could finally practice as much as I want without having to play wind ensemble and university and quintet and all of these groups that, I mean, they were doing good for me, but also taking up a lot of time when I really wanted to focus on myself and also gig more. I was playing in bands. I was performing regularly now at this point.
More on the commercial side than on the classical
yeah,
side.
I mean, I was still doing, look, I mean, there's no gig too far or pays too little. So because of my connections with my dad, I was still doing a lot of church and quintet stuff, some kind of, some chamber orchestra, community orchestra kind of things, messiahs and, kind of the generic freelance classical trumpet stuff.
Okay.
Nothing to write home about, but work's work.
Yeah.
But I was starting to play in a few bands, soloing, funk bands, corporate bands, Latin bands, everything. So that was starting to pile up. So I was like, man, semester off, earn some money, work on myself. Charlie had nothing to do with that. He wanted nothing of that. He's like, no. What I told Charlie, my grand plan, and part of that was to keep taking lessons from Charlie, like keeping that continuity. He's like, no, you're going to ruin your chops. You need to keep playing. It's like, what are you, what are you talking about, Charlie? He's like, no, you know what you're going to do. You're going to go out to Citrus College. We're going to get you in the A band, get in the jazz band out there. I was sitting in his studio when I was telling him this. I was like, is it a community college? No. I'm not going to take a jazz band class at a community college. Like, what are you doing, Charlie? While I'm sitting there, he calls up Bob Slack, another Adams student.
There you go.
Who taught out at Citrus College, which was a community college out here. And in 15 minutes on the phone call, Charlie said, I have a kid from Long Beach. He's transferring. He needs a semester. Can you put him in your A band and get him lessons? And Bob said, yes, have him meet me at my office at Citrus tomorrow morning at 8. Like that. I was like this deer. I saw all my grand plans just kind of going. I kind of knew about Citrus College, but not really until I went there. But they're for a community college jazz band 2-year program. They had, I would say, a better than most professional jazz band.
Wow.
I mean, these are all 18 and 19-year-olds. A couple kids hung around a little bit later because they enjoyed it or wanted lessons, et cetera. But I mean, basically 18 to 21, 22 years old. I mean, they backed Arturo Sandoval at a concert. They got told not to come back to jazz festivals because there was no competition, and the judges hadn't heard bands that good and swore they were paid ringers.
That's awesome.
Like, no. So they stopped doing competition. It was an incredible experience that I could do a whole podcast about. But I basically, for one semester, I got double teamed. I got lessons with Bob Slack every week. I got lessons with Charlie for every week.
Wow.
I was in the combo with Tom Hines, the great guitar player, which really took my jazz playing to different directions. And then here, I mean, this is the power of that kind of William Adam, connection.
Community, yeah.
Their A band is like getting into 1 o'clock, right? Like there's 50 trumpet players that want to get into the Citrus College A band and they have 4 seats. Well, with one phone call, now there's a 5th seat.
Wow.
For me, and I walked in the first day, these guys are like, who the heck is he? What are you doing down there on 5th? Who is this person? And it was already like 2 weeks into their semester. But the whole band took me under their wing, the trumpet section, because it's Adam guys. They're like, well, we're firing it up tomorrow at 6 a.m. Come on in.
Yeah.
And sectionals, we did, it was like the hardest working trumpet section, and most inspirational trumpet section I've ever worked with.
Wow.
So it was amazing experience. In that one semester, we did a Japan tour. We were the house band at the Hyatt Regency in Maui, for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
And we recorded it was the Duke Ellington centennial year. And we recorded, they also have a full professional soundstage that Bob Slack built from the ground up at a community college with professional engineers. We recorded a Duke Ellington celebration album for his centennial using all the original charts that kind of spanned from early in his career to later, that won a Downbeat Award.
Wow.
It was the best semester of college, thanks to Charlie's phone call and that connection with Bob Slack. And obviously, I mean, I look back at it, it's like, well, that was it. I peaked. Tours, recording, the camaraderie, and just getting my ass kicked every single day in one form or the other, either by teachers or by colleagues, to raise my standards.
Man, and that's prototypical. That's prototypical Charlie. Just like, here's what's going to happen, kid, and makes it happen. That's boy, that's amazing.
And the Atom Network, and I know Wing and Sievers and Baca and Harbaugh, all of those guys. Chris Bodie's told a story about, Bill Adams said, well, you got to call Jerry Hay. If you want to do this, call Jerry Hay, learn about microphones, things like that. I mean, that's that camaraderie, and it changed my life. And the principles, the work ethic, the leadership stuff that I learned from Bob Slack, above all of the trumpet playing stuff, is I still use every day today at the shop.
His playing is beyond reproach. I mean, good. All those guys. Man.
You can't say enough about them.
It's amazing. Wow.
So that was that. That was a nice interlude. And then, long story short, is I ended up going back to Northridge to graduate. And again, going back to the best decision I ever made, I had that Citrus College experience. Went to Northridge, met my wife there, my future wife there. So again, who knows how these things happen. And it was kind of like my teaching kind of thing went full circle, because I wanted to study from Bill again as a slightly more mature,
less uptight,
and a student. And Bill was amazing. He took me right back in. Fortunately, my chops were in a better shape through my other experiences. And so he still worked on me. We did a little bit of buzzing, but he took me through other exercises and things to work on other aspects of my playing, transposition, and then music. Like, we really spent, because I was getting ready for my senior recital, we really got into music and phrasing and orchestral excerpts and things like that. Even though I had no aspirations to do that sort of stuff, it was great. And then he still had me transcribe solos, things like, so I finished up with Bill, and it was a great kind of cap to come full circle, and take a lot more of his wisdom that I didn't get the first time.
That's fantastic. Do you think, your wife is awesome? So are your kids, and everybody that works at the shop that I've met, man, is just, it's all kind of the same. They're all just really sweet, caring, kind people that love, could stand around talking about trumpet geekery forever. But when I met her, I got the distinct impression that she's a grounding place for you. Yes. Do you think she helped you kind of chill a little bit? And tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah. No doubt. I mean, I couldn't imagine where I would be without my wife, Susie. Yeah. I mean, she puts up with me every day, and I couldn't ask for a better mother to my children, wife, friend, workout buddy. I mean, she's literally dragged me through marathons.
Nice.
So, I mean, if she can drag me through a marathon, we can get through anything.
Heck yeah, man. Before, I'm keenly interested in your working at the shop, and of course, knowing and working with Bob for so long, how that affected your life, how that affected your trumpet playing. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, and I think this is really important, because when you meet a person, you kind of, you get a sense of them, and it feels like you're really trying to take care of the infrastructure. You mentioned working out with your wife, and running a marathon. Jeez, my knees hurt just thinking about it.
Running might be a little overstatement. Shuffling. I don't say I need to be careful. That's the lawyer in me. Like, be careful with my words. I didn't run a marathon. I finished a marathon.
But you went. I mean, you trained, and you made it 26 point whatever the heck it is.
Right? There was some running involved.
All right. Okay. So then And you just mentioned it, and I learned this about you in one of our conversations. It might have been the podcast. It might have been when you came out and saw us with the band. But you went back. Okay, so you graduate from college. Tell me what happens then, including your foray back into a giant accomplishment.
Yeah. So I graduated from Cal State Northridge, and I had my performance degree, and I started knocking on doors and said, "Hey, I have this performance degree. Please hire me for a higher paying job than what I'm already getting paid." It didn't work.
It's weird
how that happened. I did finish that degree, even though it took me 7.5 years. I was in no rush. But I'm glad I did, because without that piece of paper, I couldn't have done what I did later in my life, going on to graduate school. But so those posts, I was always working a lot. I was teaching private lessons. I was coaching at high schools and middle schools, kind of the typical freelancer stuff. And there was a point where the bands I was playing with, my dream was to always have a band hit it big. And I was with a few folks at Long Beach that either had been in bands that hit it big, in the ska swing era of the 90s, No Doubt. A lot of the ska, especially Long Beach is close to Orange County. So there was a lot of my colleagues there that played with No Doubt or Ozo Motley and Real Big Fish and some of the big bands. And it's like, man, how fun would it be to tour around the world, kind of as a rock star, as a horn player, making good money, and going to Northridge. We had the Big Bad Voodoo Daddy guys came out of Northridge.
Nice.
One of the Real Big Fish, John Christensen. So I was like, one of my bands. I had a lot of feelers out there in different bands that I was playing in, and playing for record labels at clubs on the Strip, the Sunset Strip, and things. And none of that panned out, unfortunately, or fortunately, because now that I know guys on the road and the grueling stuff that it is, it's like, yeah, it's not for everybody. And at that point in my life, I might have been too old and tied down, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But I was playing a lot. I was playing 7 nights a week, teaching rehearsals. I had a Northridge Brass Quintet that I had founded that was pretty active. And then we were playing, some of the bands would play in San Francisco or Vegas or San Diego. So I was just like always on the road or going somewhere. I remember one day, and I still had a computer job. I still had a day job at this point. And I remember I worked till 5:00 in Burbank here in LA, had all my clothes and my horns and stuff with me, picked up our keyboard player in North Hollywood, drove to San Francisco, going 80 miles an hour to get to a 10:30, sound check,
Goodness.
And then we hit at 11:30, play till 12:30, opening up for a funk band. They hit at 1, till 2, we hang out. And then 3:00 at night, we turn around and drive back, and we get back to LA at 8 or 9 in the morning, and then I show up to work.
Brutal.
So things like that. It's like, I loved it. I loved it. It was great. I'm glad for that time in my life, but it reached a point, where I was like on a gig, and I was just like, what am I doing? I'm counted up the number of hours that I was practicing and driving and teaching and playing, and my pay, I'd look at my tax statement every year, tax filing. It's like, man, I made less money this year than I did the year before. Ooh. I'm still gigging a lot. I'm still working a lot. And there was a couple realizations. And I was playing in some cover bands, and some of the cover bands I was playing in, they're like some of the really happy players in there. They really enjoyed playing. They sounded amazing. They drove nice cars. They were treating people out to dinner. They weren't musicians. They were weekend warriors, as we would call them, And I was like, and then the other guys, and me, myself, the other players included, were like, oh God, when is this going to be over? I have a call tomorrow morning. And, grumpy. I try to always be as positive as possible, but I even got dark,
hard to believe, hard to imagine, but I can see.
And some of the players that were playing with me were doing the gigs. I'm on an upward trajectory, hopefully. And some of the players that were 2 or 3 times my age were doing the gigs with me. I was like, wait, you recorded the music that we're covering. What's the old comedian? Like, I don't want to be a member of a club that would include me kind of thing. Like, I was like, I don't see myself in 40 years sitting next to me, making $75 at a bowling alley, and some people love that. I'm not judging, but that, like, in my own life, I was like, if I'm going to have a wife and kids and the quality of life I wanted, like, I don't want to be playing for $75 because I have to, because I need the $75.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, like, it got to the point where I resented playing. Like, it was like, I got the trumpet out and it didn't bring me joy. And I had a conversation with my wife and I was like, I've had this crazy thing since I was really young. I've always wanted to go to law school. And I said, if I add up the hours that I work and play and all of that stuff, I would be like the number one associate. I would probably make partner in 4 years instead of 7, considering that, like, you need 2,200 billable hours to be top of like, I did the math. I was like, I could have done 3,000 billable hours. Like this, it'll be not a piece of cake, but it'll be a step back if I go to law school and actually work as an attorney. Oh, and by the way, my starting salary would be $225,000 a year, plus benefits, plus retirement, plus a tech stipend, et cetera. So I went all in. I was working at the shop at the time. I had quit my computer gig and worked at the shop, which I love doing. They were really supportive of my professional career. They let me practice here. If I got called for a gig or whatever, Bob and KO in the shop were really flexible. But it just, to me, it was kind of a dead end job. Like, I did what I did, but Bob was Bob and KO was the manager here. And it was never going to be able to pay enough to just make ends meet with everything else I was doing. And so I put myself on like a 1.5-year plan to study for the LSAT, the entrance exam here in the U.S. for law school, and started applying for law schools.
How'd you do in the LSAT?
I did okay. I did okay. I did pretty good.
Okay.
And I tell my kids this, I tell my students this, like, if you can learn to play an instrument and play in a group and develop the discipline and the skills and the pattern of learning, you transfer that to anything else in the world.
Exactly the same.
It's a piece of cake. I
couldn't agree. I mean, 1,000%, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's the exact same discipline. If you're somebody struggling with their weight or working out or relationship stuff, I mean, it's everything, man. Because if you can sit, I've already played for an 1.5 hours today. I'm going to wind up with the session. I'll play 6 hours. If you can sit and do anything for 6 hours, you can accomplish everything. I mean, it's amazing, and that's super cool.
Yeah. So it took me. I mean, I forget it was about 6 months of LSAT prep, but I took it like I took my practicing. I basically replaced my practicing. I took fewer gigs. I still kept my students, one, to kind of keep my playing, but also I didn't want to just drop them since some of them were going into Allstate and going on to college, et cetera. So I transitioned a little bit out of the gigging. I was saying no to more stuff, but primarily it was like I wasn't really worried about my practicing. So I replaced my practice time with LSAT study time, and I was religious about it. And I probably took 100 practice tests, and wow. By the time I got to the LSAT, I still had a panic attack. It was still one of the hardest things I ever have done. But it prepared me. And the funny thing is, when I was sitting there during that test and I had my panic attack, I was like, this is no different than screwing up on stage. What am I going to do? Yeah,
cat's out of the bag at that point. Just calm down and move forward.
Yeah.
Right.
So I set my pencil down. I did some deep breathing, and I still got a score that got me into a great school. So yeah.
How long were you in school?
So it was 2008. So law school is a 3-year process. I got into USC downtown, University of Southern California. In fact, I have I call it my $200,000 mug. And it was an amazing experience. I don't wish it on anyone else unless you really want to torture yourself. And I didn't listen to I didn't know very many attorneys, no one in the family, but every attorney I knew I talked to, and they said, "You're nuts. Don't do it. You're going to hate it. Do anything else other than law." But then I said, "Well, why are you doing it?" "Well, I found an area of the law that I loved." "Well, would you give it up for anything else?" "No." "Okay, well, now I had some context. Okay, well, law school is going to be hard. It's difficult, and I'm going to have to pay my dues until I find an area of a law that I loved." And that was my plan. Everything happens for a reason. I got into law school. Everyone was 8 years younger than me. Laptops were a thing now.
They were super heavy. They were really heavy. Man.
Apparently, yeah. Well, in the 8 years between graduating, not that we needed laptops really to do music theory, but there was always one guy, I think, in one of my GE classes that had a laptop, and that was the only one I saw going through my undergrad. And now I show up, and it's 100 people all typing much faster than I could type, taking notes. Yeah. But I was like, I loved it. I love my professors. It's the great thing about USC is a small class. I mean, it's a class of 200 for the whole, so you get to know everyone.
Yeah.
Not that the classes are 200 in there, but we're all in our classes, but you get to know your whole level, L1 level or 1L, 2L as you're going through the years. And so I was in the middle of my second year, and Bob Reeves called me. And so I quit. I gave my resignation, quit right before law school. And Bob called me one night, said, "Hey, John, there's something wrong with the website. Could you take a look at it?" This is like out of the blue. I had been in touch with Bob through the years. He gave me some albums, or like he was clearing something out of his house. He'd give it to me. So we'd still keep in touch. And I did the website for the shop. So I was like, okay, this makes sense. I'll take a look at it. Take me 15 minutes because the price was wrong or something. And then that was kind of like the first peel of, the skin of the onion. As I started peeling back, I realized that the situation at the shop was really dire. I had left. A lot of other people had left. Bob didn't really have the best person working here at the time. He wasn't a trumpet player. He wasn't anyone who had worked here before. He had kind of come out of corporate America, didn't want people to pick up the phone, didn't want people to answer emails. We just, and Bob was of the age where he didn't really have the ability to do that, considering also that his wife was also very ill. Anyway, he said, "John, I was like, Bob, things are pretty bad." He's like, "Yeah, would you be able to come back kind of part-time?" And I was like, "Bob, I'm in law school. I already have, $100,000 in debt, and I'm only halfway through. I have to read 10,000 pages a week, basically, and write, and you want me to run a business that's, I think UPS had already stopped picking up because we were so far behind in bills. I think AT&T was a week away from shutting off the phones. But then I was like, I can't, I don't know. I didn't feel like I owed Bob anything, but I developed a close relationship with Bob during the years I worked here. And just knowing the institution that he and the shop were to the brass community, I was like, I can't see this happen. And I also started realizing what all of those people were trying to tell me before I went to law school. It's like, as much as I loved studying the law, as much as I loved the rigors and the theoretical stuff and the hypotheticals and stuff, I really didn't want to do what I wanted to go into corporate law, mergers and acquisitions and things like that, international tax. And those really, interested me. And then I met the people that did them. I was like, and also, no offense to the international tax attorneys out there, Murray Gordon is one of them, and he's fabulous, and he's the exception. He's a fabulous trumpet player as well. But for the most part, they looked dead inside. They never saw their families. The money was great, but then the pedantic, torturous work you had to do to get to the level where you were flying around and advising companies, it's like, no, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So Bob made me an offer. He said, "Look, if you come back and work and run things, you can run things the way you want. I just want to be Bob. I want to help customers and whip stuff out on the lathe, and you run the business." And I had a difficult conversation with my wife, on my part, not her part, because I said, Susie, I have a choice here. Like, I can go back and run my own business, but it means, like, I'm going to make $15 an hour, not $225,000 a year. And she said, thank God you can,
Really?
we had our first kid was on the way. She's like, you can be around, for the birth of our first kid. We can go to baseball games. We can travel. She's like, as long as you can pay for your student loans,
That's the perfect answer, man.
Right.
Do not screw that up, brother. She is the best thing that ever happened to you.
And so that was it. And the only caveat was then, like, I'm already halfway through this. I want to, just like the 7.5 years with my undergrad, it's like, I want to get the piece of paper. It's a very valuable piece of paper, because if I ever do need to work as a lawyer or want to, it does mean something. So I did finish my 3 years at school. I did pass the bar, California State Bar, first time, thank God.
Nice.
And I pay my bar dues every year just in case. And thankfully I've needed the degree a few times, and it comes in handy, but it also, thankfully I've never had to, really work as an attorney. I did some estate planning, some wills and trust stuff during COVID as a side gig, just as hey man, I don't know what the world's going to look like. I don't know if we're going to have musicians, post COVID. Yeah. And also by working as as an attorney for a few years, I was able to take my burden off of the shop to help us get through that time.
Yeah.
So that came in handy there. It's still there in the back pocket just in case. But I'm really thankful for the experience, really thankful for Bob, because I realized that when you're an attorney and you're advising corporations, you're still the advisor. Yeah. You're not the one. If you're the entrepreneur, if you're the CEO, you're the one in the hot seat. You're the one making the calls. And that to me is much more fulfilling than, hey, this is what you probably should do. These are the implications.
Yeah.
And I got a better training than what you could get going for an MBA, because Bob gave me the reins 15 years ago, and I knew nothing about business.
Yeah.
And I had to learn, and what better way to learn than to just steering a 50-year-old brand,
You had to learn quick so you could pay AT&T and get FedEx to start coming back to the door, because that's a big challenge. And I would imagine that the law degree, helped you, especially with the transition after Bob passed with the company, and making sure all the I's were dotted and T's were crossed and all that good stuff. So you completely understood whatever they put in front of you, and were able to tweak it and make sure that it was correct.
Yeah. And the law degree was priceless in that I knew when I needed an attorney. I knew what to look for. I knew the kind of the red flags to look for. Fortunately, Bob, since the early days, had a close friend that was a intellectual property attorney, Don McIntosh.
Nice.
So that's why we have patents. They've all run their course now, but we have a sleeve patent. Bob has the valve alignment patent both back in the 70s. Our trademarks and things like that. So we've been well protected in that regard for decades. Where Bob wasn't protected is he was a sole proprietor for all those years, and so if someone wanted to sue him and take his house because they cut their lip or something on a mouthpiece or something like that. And then the legacy plan. So first thing when I came back was Bob Incorporated for the first time, and was an actual legal entity other than himself personally. Yeah. Because that sole proprietorship is still a legal entity. And then obviously legacy plans for both he and his wife. And I was able to not do that for him because I had zero experience as an attorney, but I was able to kind of walk him through the process and help him make sure, look, these are the things you need to get your ducks in a row to protect yourself, protect your wife, protect the business, et cetera. And it's worked out so far.
So 15 years ago, what do you feel like your biggest contribution to the success of the brand has been?
Ooh, man.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, so there's Bob set up his. I mean, he's. Did you ever meet Bob? I don't think you ever got
Never.
to meet him in person.
Never met him.
For those who were fortunate to meet Bob, he was probably the most principled person I've ever met.
Wow.
Like he, uh, whatever it was, he lived by his code. And that really is what, so you talk about turning the business around. I mean, some of it was just basic things that I could do that I say, look, we need to fill these orders. We need to, like, that's, anyone could have done that. What I was able to do was be able to take Bob's principles and kind of move them to the forefront of the business, meaning in how we market. There's 50 mouthpiece makers out there. Well, what makes Bob Reeves different?
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, how we treat you. We don't care if you're Doc Severinsen walking in or a high school kid looking for their first jazz band mouthpiece. Like, we're going to spend the day with you. We're going to make you feel like the most important person on the planet, and not try to sell you a mouthpiece, but see, can we find a solution for you that's going to make you sound better now that you have to play big fat band charts in 10th grade, right? Or whatever the case may be. And also getting Bob out there, Bob no one's going to have the experience that he had, because Bob was a one-man show for so long. And I'm talking specific. He had a lot of help, credit to K.O. Skinsness, who's at Stomby now. He was really integral in turning Bob from kind of I don't want to say hobby, but basically a garage shop where you go in and get some cool work done, to an actual business. K.O. was very, that he made that happen. But prior to that, like in the 60s and 70s, I don't think there's anyone in the world who worked with the quantity and caliber of players that Bob Reeves did during those 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
You'd look at the artist role in the studios in 1968. You have the old guys like Manny Klein and Ray Triscari and Kleiman and Johnny Audino, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. I mean, Yuan Racy, Tootie's trumpets. You have that generation. But then you have Jerry Haight, Chuck Finley, Malcolm McNabb, Rick Baptist, and then the next generation of studio players coming in, plus you have the artists that live out, Herb Albert, and you have, the list goes on and on and on and on. And they all came to Bob. Yeah. And a lot of them needed something, and they had to go to the studio right afterwards. Bud Brisbois, the famous story, Bud comes in and wants a custom mouthpiece, and to go and play that infamous Henry Mancini album that he solos on, one of them, that afternoon. Like the margin of error that Bob had early on in his career was zero. He wouldn't have made it if he couldn't solve these players' sometimes complicated problems at a very high level early on. But it was because of Bob's machining, Bob's, amazing musical ear, and his knowledge of acoustics and design.
Being able to identify through talking to Bud Brisbois what he wanted, mm-hmm. and then by hand, none of this CNC crap, right? By hand on a lathe, make that mouthpiece. Oh, yeah. What an amazing.
Zero margin for error. And times are different, and maybe that skill's not necessary, although I would argue that it is, because the scene has changed, and there's companies that make their name by sending out a box of mouthpieces and say, hey, find something that works out of this, and you have the time to go through and say, oh, this one's kind of close, and then, we still work to the standard as if it's 1972, and whoever's coming in, even if it's a high school player, or I had this amazing doctor, he told me 50 times he's an amateur player. And I was like, I don't want to hear that you're an amateur. You're a musician. Whether you get paid to make music or not, you're no different than me or Arturo Sandoval or anyone else, Allison
100%.
Balsam. 100%. We are musicians, we're artists, and you make music, and we're going to do something for you, and that's, and I treated him as if he had to go down to Sony Records tomorrow and play a Jerry Hay chart, like
that's a lifelong customer that you've created there. Really, a lifelong customer that you've created. That personal experience. I mean, from the first time you and I talked and met, it's just, first of all, just to back up just a little bit, the whole law school thing and doing well on the LSATs and passing the bar the first time, it's glaringly apparent that you are not a prototypical trumpet player in the intelligence department. So let's just get that right out of the way. You're not a dummy. You haven't killed nearly enough brain cells by playing a double high C's. But that, and then the part of it where when you and I met the first time at the casino out there, I felt like I'd known you for 30 years. Like we went to high school together and we were buds. And so I think that translates. And when people feel like they're special boys or special girls, that's going to create that kind of, and I think that comes from you, but it also comes by example from Bob, from what I understand.
And that's it. It's I mean, not to put it coldly, but it's systemizing the principles that Bob had. He just didn't have the skill set to run a company with those principles. He had them themselves. And fortunately, through his years, he had employees that were good enough or would latch on to certain enough things that the business survived for 50 years. But then we developed a team starting in 2010, 2011 that, I don't even think Bob dreamed of what the shop, Bob was born in 1931. He survived the Depression. He was in the Navy. We're a product of our times. And if there was any fault to Bob, it was always, everything was limited resources. We had this, we're not going to have enough money to do this, or we can't do this because of this. And I get it. Like that's where he came from. And that's also what made him a tough cookie and made him survive dire times sometimes, or slim times. Yeah. But what I was able to bring was kind of a growth mindset and look, it's not resources we're lacking, it's resourcefulness, and thankfully Bob is one of the most resourceful people I know. He just didn't realize he can also apply that to his business. Nice. So very being nice. Able to connect those dots for him, he's like, he had an old Navy term, but basically the eagle always takes a dump on Friday, meaning when you're in the Navy, and that's a nice way of putting it. You guys can fill in the blanks or use your imagination, but basically, look, how was your week? Well, the eagle, meaning the U.S. government, paid my salary this week, and I was like, Bob, we're fine. The business is going to make it. Yeah. We need to think about, well, how are we going to grow? Do you want a new building? Like, how do you want to expand the shop? Well, and then all of a sudden, and this is one of the things I'm really grateful for, I was able to provide for Bob is the last 10 or 12 years of his life, he really didn't have to worry about finances. He didn't have to worry about how he was going to pay employees. There was months and years where he didn't take home a paycheck because he had to make payroll and pay rent and things like that. Things that every small business owner has probably experienced at one point or another. So that combined with the fact that getting him to Japan, getting him to Europe, getting him out to ITGs again, people could show their appreciation to him, to kind of bring his life full circle again. He was able to reconnect with Doc Severinsen, who he hadn't talked to for years, and things like that. So, knowing that when Bob did eventually pass away, he was, at the top in terms of his recognition and his things like that. Not that he ever asked for it, but, he slaved away in the back to make trumpet players. He's like, all I want to do is hear your song. That's why he did what he did. He came up with the alignment because he could hear players struggling with different valve combinations, and it got in the way of the song. Yeah. It's like, I want to hear your song. The gap was a resistance thing and dialing in the kind of the response to the note, because he could hear players struggling, and he realized, well, this is a quick way, a fairly easy way that can dial in the horn so you can make music better, because I want to hear more music, less struggling. That's good. Well, so to have him end his life knowing that he had that kind of recognition worldwide was kind of my I sleep better at night knowing that I had a part in that.
Well, kudos to you. I think it's awesome that you came in when you did and the way that you did and made the sacrifices. And again, your awesome wife, Susie, and I'm sure the kids having to put up with all kind of stuff. Let's talk about the products. Now, obviously, you have the mouthpieces and the sleeves and the alignments. And just as a side note, John did 5 horns for me at Atom Fest and just slaved away over them. It was great. It was incredible to watch. I'm still a little embarrassed about the first one when he asked me, "What have you been eating?" Which I'm sure.
Nothing I haven't seen before. It's all good.
Sure. But and they play better. They just play better. The pitch, the slotting, just everything about it. And so I would highly encourage folks to avail themselves of your service. They're reasonable, quick, and it's an easy process. But the products that you've decided to carry in the shop, the guard bags, and I'm a huge convert. I just had a couple of custom ones made with the Vinny and the Hitman logo on them. So I got a triple and a big wheelie thing, that will never fit in an overhead, but I'm going to make it fit in an overhead. But I love that company. Tell me about some of the other companies that you've decided. I know Van Laar.
Yeah.
Charlie Davis trumpets, right? But tell me the other products that you offer, and then tell me about this recent acquisition by the company, which is really exciting.
Yeah. Well, so we even though we make stuff, we make the mouthpieces, we do the alignments. We always have considered ourselves a service company, and this goes back to Bob. This was not new. I wholeheartedly agree when I came back, and again, part of our marketing, part of our training, all of that stuff was how can we serve our customers better through consultations. Maybe it is a stock mouthpiece, maybe it's a custom mouthpiece, maybe it's an alteration, maybe it's an alignment, etc. And we're never going to change how we make our mouthpieces. Part of the secret, part of the magic of a Bob Reeves mouthpieces can only be done with handwork. And I'm sure there's some fancy CNC machinists out there that are rolling their eyes at me. And that's fine. I get it. I'm not going to go on too much of a tangent, but one of our handwork videos on Instagram went super viral. I mean, millions of views.
Wow.
And somehow we got into machinist TikTok and machinist Instagram. Like, it hit that algorithm. The number, I thought trumpet players were bad. Like, you get a salty machinist that, I don't know what he thinks or he or she thinks we do here, but like the insults and hey, I'm going to send you a CAD file and a CNC and it's going to change your life. And man, you're doing this, you're doing that. It's like, I'm not going to go work at one of these aerospace places next door because I don't have that kind of training, but the training that Brett and I and the other folks here have, money couldn't buy. Yeah. So anyway, I find that hysterical about the machining stuff we do. We do that stuff very well and we take pride in it, but we are a service company and we can only make stuff so fast. And so as we're trying to grow as a company to help more trumpet players, help more trombone, brass players in general, to expand our reach, we can only make so many mouthpieces. We can only physically do so many alignments. So we started thinking more of what is our purpose in our space. And that means bringing products as a service to our customers. Van Laar was our first foray because at the time, the only person you could get Van Laar instruments from was Bobby Finley, studio trumpet player, Bobby Finley, not a music store. He's a trumpet player. And I'm sure over a few drinks with Hube, the friendly agreement,
maybe more than a few.
Yeah. the friendly agreement to, hey, I'll take some of your horns back to LA to show them to my friends, turned into, well, Bobby Finley is the North American distributor of Van Laar products, So that was an opportunity because Bobby was looking for the door, the exit without dropping Hube, and Hydran and the Van Laar folks. He didn't want to leave them hanging, right. But also he didn't want to go to represent them at trade shows and be a music store. He's a studio trumpet player. And well, I mean, we have a beautiful relationship had with Hube and still do with Hydran and Yannick.
Yannick is gold, and he learned right at the feet of Hube, and he is carrying on that legacy. Their horns are as good or better than ever.
Yeah, and so it was an opportunity for us. Great brand. Exclusivity, synergy, to use a corporate term, between how they treat their customers, how they work with equipment in terms of instruments, similar to how we do with our mouthpieces. And so it was a good fit. And it was a service to our customers, because you walk in the door, we're not going to say, hey, you should be playing this Van Laar trumpet. Right. But one, if you're looking for one, we can advise you on them and we can get one in the door for you. And two, when you're here working on something and maybe an option you didn't even know that existed. So it started with that, and that went really well. Charlie Davis started his line, and that was just like a natural extension, because Charlie wants to make them. He wants to tweak them. He doesn't want to sell them. He's similar to Bobby Finley. He's a trumpet player. He wants to play. He wants to do the things he enjoys. He doesn't want to do that side of things. And so we were able to carry those and distribute for him. And then a few years ago, actually it was during COVID, we realized there was a kind of a vacuum that was created in LA in the retail space. And we had expanded into trombone mouthpieces. All of us at the shop at the time were trumpet players, and we didn't speak the language. And it just so happened one of the best retail folks in the business out here, Robert Coomber, found he didn't have a job. He had 25 years experience running one of the most popular, he was the floor manager, so to speak, of one of the most popular high-end shops, brass shops in LA.
Nice.
And he was sitting at home twiddling his thumbs. And I was like, hey,
come on,
Robert, need a job? So Robert's been here almost 5 years now with after COVID, and he came up here and was like, why aren't you selling polishing cloths? Why aren't you selling valve oil? Why aren't you selling trombone spray? Why aren't you selling mutes? Everyone needs a Tom Crown mute. Why aren't you selling a Tom Crown mute?
The margin on those things is sweet. It's nice. It helps.
And everyone needs them. No one had a place to go to get them in LA. Oh, by the way, we also have regular people coming in here all the time that would see that it's like a no brainer. Yeah. I just had no real retail experience especially in this space. And, and you're like, I'm doing what I'm doing. So to have a fresh pair of eyes that say, man, we've sold so many polishing cloths in the last 5 years, thanks to Mr. Coomber. Well, and then he said, do you know how many Shires trombones I sold at the old store? I was like, we don't have room for trombone. Like, really? Like, I don't.
Don't fight it, Johnny. Don't fight it.
Don't fight it. Don't fight. It was three. It was probably 3.5. We've been carrying Shires. Long story short, we carry Shires. I finally listened, but I think it was like 3 years he was nagging me to carry the Shires trombones, and now because of the trombones, we also carry the trumpets, which also I'm a fan of. Yeah. So it's like next thing you know, I can't get to my desk because there's 35 trombones that we have no space for. It's like, where did we go? Like, but it's been incredible because we're not trying to sell you a trombone when you come in or a Shires trumpet, but if it's the right tool for the right job and we can help you get into it, it's amazing. And we also, because we're not pure retail, we're not, God bless those stores. Like, we wouldn't have school bands, we wouldn't have rental programs, we wouldn't have any of that without the great music stores around the world. But we don't have the pressure. Like, if you come in and you decide you don't need a trombone, we're still cranking out mouthpieces in the back. Like, we're fine. So we don't have any of that pressure that a pure retail store has to turn over inventory and things like that. So it's really a blessing business wise for me, when I do the books, to know that, look, if this isn't the best trombone or the best trumpet for this customer, like, it's fine. Tell them that. And that comes back to Bob. Not that we were ever trying to really be pushy with anybody. However, this is a great Bob story. I remember when we were carrying Van Laar, a customer emailed, said, I really want a Van Laar trumpet. Great. We have 4 or 5 in stock. It would be a perfect time. The customer was up in Northern California, so 5-hour drive away. I made an appointment, came down. We had all 5 Van Laars polished up, ready to go. And I worked with the customer probably 3 or 4 hours going through the models, narrowing them down. Here, try this, try that. And he really found a model he liked, and I don't want to say that I was pushy or it's like, man, but it was an easy sale. This guy was finding a horn that he loved the brand and he really liked his horn. And his previous horn was a great Bach. I mean, he sounded good on that horn, but he really liked the sound of the Van Laar and the way it felt. Bob shows up. Bob comes in, hey, introduce you to this customer. He's just getting ready to buy this Van Laar. And he's like, oh, Bob, can I play these for you? Bob, sure, of course. So he plays the Van Laar and Bob says, let me hear you on your original horn. And he plays a few notes on his Bach. And Bob says, no, you sound like a Bach player.
Bobby boy, what are you doing?
And you know what? Yeah, I mean, he was right. He was right. And
that is a killer story about exactly what you guys stand for. Oh my gosh.
I'm sitting there like submitting payroll in the back, pulling my hair out, like, and not really, one, it was like, look, this guy really wanted a Van Laar. He sounded good on it. He sounded good on it. It was great. Like, it did things for him that his Bach didn't do. And I was happy to sell a horn. He was happy to buy a horn that he flew down that he really wanted. I spent 3 or 4 hours with him listening and talking. So there was like that time in there too, just, whisked away in literally 20 seconds. And then the kind of the code of that is the guy went back and he went back and forth between the horn he had singled out and his Bach. And after about 20 minutes, he came out and he's like, there's something in the sound of my Bach, even though this note's kind of out of tune and it feels kind of like there is something about this horn. I think I'm just going to stick with my horn, And by that point, I had accepted the truth, and also I am also not just a pushy salesman. Right. I make myself out to be like the bad guy, but it was really, I was like, well, yeah, man, play your Bach. And the thing with Van Laar is I think we sold the horn next week anyway, because they're that good. So, but that's it.
Here's the important question. Did you sell him a polishing cloth?
Well, not that. This was because this was pre Robert Cumber. So I could have made that extra $8 upsale. Cause the pity, well, I didn't buy a $4,000 horn, but I will buy this polishing cloth.
Yeah.
And a Hetman too,
Yeah.
But that story was to represent the fact that, like, when I love Robert and all the folks here, because same thing. We had a guy here playing his horn, and he was playing a Q series Shires, and wanted to come back because we had a custom in of a similar horn. He wanted to try the custom, and played the both. And Cumber said, "Yeah, man, play the Q. You sound great on it." Yeah. And that's the right answer.
That is the correct.
That's the right answer.
Yep.
Not, hey, I'm going to make an extra $250 commission on this and move them in. So anyway, we're in a very fortunate place. I pinch myself every day because we have the luxury of providing cool products that you're not going to find everywhere. Although guard bags are now ubiquitous, but I love them and I love the company. I love the folks there.
Amazing.
Dear friends of mine. And the last part you asked about is our recent acquisition.
Yeah.
And again, another cool mute that was not on my radar until about 4 years ago. Ulven Mutes out of Sweden. And folks listening, I've mentioned them several times, and you may not have looked them up yet, but now you're going to have to because we own the company.
And we'll put the the link and all that good stuff down in the comments and all that.
And just real brief, Ulvane, I mean, a vintage brand from and I should know now that we own the company when it was actually founded, but I believe it was late 40s, early 50s. Gunnar Ulvane in Sweden. Started making mutes, and I mean the most famous mute is the Dizzy Gillespie, the bop mute and the cup mute. Dizzy used them almost his whole career.
Wow.
And we still have an agreement with the Dizzy Gillespie's estate to use his name and likeness and still call it that, because that mute was so important to Dizzy's image and his legacy.
Yeah, sure.
His sound, that quintessential bebop cup and bop mute sound was Ulvane. And I mean, that thing's a honker. It's a solid copper, chrome plated thing, weighs a ton. But if you want that sound, that's it, and it's still the tools. I was out there in Sweden a month ago, saw the original tooling that had made all of Dizzy's mutes, Faddis among many others. Maynard Ferguson used it's the same design mute. They have one design for the Poppy Harmon mute or bop mute. Dizzy's was chrome plated copper. Maynard's was aluminum. Nice. I think he liked the white painted aluminum, but they make but same design, same pitch, same similar sound. Obviously, the material is going to change the sound, but the history there, Clark Terry, Snooky, you name it. I've mentioned Faddis in the trumpet world, use the cups, use the Harmons. There's a great video of Snooky Young using the cup kind of as a plunger. Yeah. He used to famously do. And thanks to my good buddy in Japan, I own Snooky's horn, his large bore Severinsen, gold plated Severinsen with the Ulvane mute in the case. So we brought that one home, have that in the back of the shop.
You got to hang that on the wall, man. That's a conversation piece. That is a really good. Hey, so you were telling me about the original. I mean, Gunnar Ulvane. That guy was going to be successful if he was a fisherman. That's a great name, Gunnar.
Right.
Right. So, tell me about the equipment, and then aren't there generational spinners of these mutes?
Yeah. Okay. So Gunnar, I mean, Old Man Gunnar, and there's some great letters and things between him and some of the artists, and they did straight mutes, which we still make. And Håkan Hardenberger famously plays those. He plays the copper straight and the copper cup as well. He's been playing those for decades, and tons of recordings of his, and if you see him in recital. And on the trombone side of things, Christian Lindberg has a few of his own models. Nils Landgren, famous for his red Yamaha trombone. We have a matching chili red bop mute for him.
Nice.
So I mean, there's so many great artists that use those mutes through the years. And so here, this is a really cool part. So kind of give you the transition, like this family kind of fell out of love or just lost interest in the company, maybe in the late 90s. And it was kind of sat stagnant. All the tools were still in boxes, but just, they didn't really do anything with it. And then, in late 2019, Lasse Lindgren, who I've had on here, had an interest in bringing these mutes back. There's people would always ask for them, and also he's Swedish, and come to find out his mother was the bookkeeper for the family.
Oh wow!
And so he grew up around the factory, and just that was part of his heritage, and his growing up as a trumpet player was being around all of these mutes. So in late 2019, and then finally finishing the deal in 2020, Lasse bought the company and started revitalizing it. Advertising, creating a website, creating social media, getting artist agreements in place again, and really bringing I had never heard of the company, honestly, prior to Lasse taking over. But the problem was 2 months after he bought the company, COVID hits.
Oh, God.
So poor Lasse, I mean, here he is, fabulous trumpet player, recording on TV, touring, COVID hits. Holy crap, I own a mute company, and I have 0 gigs for the foreseeable future. And I don't know how I mean, I know how he did it. He's resourceful, he's brilliant, and he cares about the heritage of the company and the product. And he's well connected, so he got mutes in the right hands, including our hands. He sent out a whole box of mutes a few years ago to us to try out, and that's when we started carrying them. But it got to the point where it was too much. He needed to focus now that everything's open. He needed to focus back on his playing career, as he told me, and I'm sure he wouldn't mind me telling me this. John, I'm just a dumb jazz trumpet player. what do I know about running a business? And actually, he a lot more than I think he gives himself credit for, because he did revitalize the brand. But now we're taking the reins over. He got it going. He got the trajectory going up, and then now we're going to take the reins over and keep things going. And amazing. Very excited to do it.
Yeah.
The most important part is how they're made. I've said a few times, the original tooling, I saw it myself, original mandrels, and get this. So I met the metal spinner, Mikhail, and he's in the middle of nowhere, Sweden. And this gorgeous factory. I was like, coming from LA traffic and the noise, hustle and bustle, like I was almost ready to just move the shop there when we visited. But get this, he is the son of the original metal spinner. So his father spent his whole career spinning metal, aluminum, copper, not just exclusively for the mutes, but I mean, a big part of his business was spinning the Olven mutes. And Michael was doing something else and decided, hey, I really want to take on what my father did. This was many years ago. Wow. And took over his father's spinning business, metal spinning business, and has taken it from there. And so yeah, we had a great meeting. He showed me how he spun the mutes, and see his metal spinning is different from what we do, turning mouthpieces. Yeah. But different process, similar in some respects. But the care he takes, I had no idea. Like the bigger mutes, like some of the trombone mutes, it takes an hour or sometimes over an hour to do the spinning. Wow. Trumpet mutes take almost as long as it takes for us to make a mouthpiece. Wow. And to see, for us, like a big thing is the finishing. What's the finish of the metal? Is it rough? Is there chatter? Sure. He was spinning some stuff for us while we were there, and it looked like a mirror. Wow. And he's like, yeah, this is before we even polish it up. I was like, you're a kid. Like, you don't need to polish this. Like, this is, I can see myself in the metal. And it started as an aluminum disc like 20 minutes ago. So the craftsmanship and the care is like, oh man, this is going to work. This is incredible. You can't find people like this anymore. And that they fell in our lap,
Well, let me tell you something about what you just said, John. You could replace Bob Reeves Brass in that sentence, in my opinion. You just can't find people like this anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing that you're carrying on the legacy in the spirit of Bob, and congratulations on everything. And I hope you sell them all, and and you get way behind, and you still selling them. I think it's fantastic. Man, this has been awesome, John. Really, really incredible.
You're amazing.
Listen, you did all the work, man. So I do have a question for you. So at the beginning of this, before we turned on the recording, everybody, John mentioned that he was a little anxious about being in the hot seat. So now that it's over, what do you think, John? How was it?
Hey, you led me through this. You're amazing. You're amazing. You might be hearing from me for future episodes.
I'm in, man, 100%. And by the way, the amount of money that I paid John to say that was very, very generous. Very generous.
I think with all your extra time, you need to start a podcast.
Oh, yeah, sure. I had one for a little while. It was called The Fit Musician, and it really went swimmingly, but it was during COVID, and we did pretty well during COVID. We just kind of, with the remote recording, you don't have to worry about spreading a pandemic, and so it was kind of cool. Okay, so I think we're gonna land the plane, to quote one of my other favorite podcast guys, and I am going to ask you the question that you ask everybody else. Probably the most important question that we can ask, leaving us. Your best piece of advice for, now wait,
Ooh.
trumpet players, trombone
Mhm.
players, people who are trumpet players and trombone players that are thinking about becoming lawyers, and people who are trumpet players or trombone players that now own a widely recognized, very successful business. What is your best piece of advice?
Ooh. Ooh. Yeah, man, and I thought about this because I knew you were going to do this.
Uh-huh.
And it doesn't make it any easier. I really feel for my guests. And then for folks listening because a number of people say, oh man, that's a tough question. And then they come up with this gem, without the, ability to actually think about it in advance. So with that context, like I think it's the same piece of advice for everybody, and it's going to be a little bit longer than it should be, but that's okay. Like to me, in terms of creating a good life for yourself, there's two sides of the coin, or there's two things that you really have to master. And the easiest one to me is achievement, or success, science of success, right? If you want to be a trumpet player, there's a million methods out there and a million people who have done it that you can use to guide your path. If you want to run a marathon, there's more than, if you want to run a business, if you want to lose weight, like you said, like to get from A to B, the information is out there. And now it's even easier and cheaper to get that information and you apply it. That's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is then the fulfillment part. And that's where I think me personally and a lot of the folks that I've met and talked to and worked with commonly fall short. They get the achievement part for better or worse, but then once they're there, it doesn't mean anything. They don't have the fulfillment. And there's lots of books on that, but there's no method for you or me on that. You have to find that yourself. What gets you juiced? What gets you up in the morning? And then how do you connect the two? How do you connect the achievement to the fulfillment? And that's something I've struggled with off and on all through my life. And I think if there's anything I know how to do now that I'm proud of, it's connecting those two. And looking back, like I remember going to law school and I knew I was going to get choked up at this point. I remember the first time I got my horn out after I quit playing. I'd gone to law school. I had visions of making all this money, and I got my trumpet out for the first time without that pressure of having to make a living playing, without having to be good for anybody. And I remembered how fun it was to play again. And I was like, this is it. This is fulfillment. I'm playing trumpet for me, and if I can make someone else happier, whether I'm doing it for money, I can make that connection. Great. But I'm not going to care after that. And same thing with the business. Like, man, we had a great quarter this year. Well, what does it mean? So what? How are my employees? Are my employees better off now after this quarter, whether we made money or not? Are they going to be rock stars? Like, is one of my trombone players going to thank me 20 years from now because we launched his trombone career, because he had a flexible place to work that paid for his transition from student to professional? Things like that. Like, that gets me juiced. And so when I can use, I went from A to B in terms of achievement or success, and I can use that to fuel what fulfills me. And I didn't even get into family stuff, wife, children, parents, friends, things like that. That's it. That's it. So for those folks listening, man, practice your Clarks, practice your long tones, win that audition, but connect it to what makes you juiced.
John, that didn't sound rehearsed at all, man. I've listened to a ton of these podcasts. You're pissing me off because that is by far, leaps and bounds, the best answer I've ever heard anybody give to that. It just encapsulates anything. You could transfer that to anything you do, anytime, anywhere. It's amazing. You are a gem. I want you to keep up the good and great work. Just absolutely amazing. And I'm so privileged to count you as my friend. And I definitely have to come out there and spend a whole bunch of money. Although I feel like I paid for a couple of plane tickets out with
you've done your fair share. You've done your fair share. But you made me cry, Vinny. Man,
yeah.
I mean, it is hot up here, but I didn't come into work thinking, man, I'm going to get emotional talking about heavy valve caps and valve oil, man. Come on.
Okay, just as the one last thing, I have, as you know, I have heavy valve bottoms and tops and all that stuff, and I see the arguments online. It's just a sugar pill or whatever the deal is. It really doesn't make any difference, and I sometimes jokingly say, when somebody busts my chops about having heavy caps, I say, tell that to my 50 plus Grammy nominations and 25 wins.
Mm-hmm.
You will qualify to criticize my horn when you get past that.
Yeah.
And I just say goodbye.
Yeah. The proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
Well, Vinny, I have to thank you. That was much less painless than I thought. It was better than going to the dentist. So thank you.
So much less painless or painful.
Yeah.
Well,
that's why you did the interview, because you have a way with words that I don't. Much less painful.
Yeah.
Than I thought it would be. Thank you so much.
I'm not sure if you're convincing yourself, our audience, or me, but whatever it takes, John. You were awesome, and it was easy for me because I love hearing the stories. I mean, the laundry list of players that you have rubbed elbows with and made trumpet playing, hopefully made trumpet playing easier for them. It's staggering to me. And I could listen to it all day. I think we could have easily done 4 hours, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I like, as I said in the intro, your guest was long-winded. 12 years of asking questions, and you kind of let the floodgates loose. No, it was a lot of fun, and I hope our listeners, now I'm not as much of an enigma as it has been for the last 13 years, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. And now actually being in this side of things, now maybe my interviews will be better with the guests, because now I have a little bit of perspective.
I'm slightly concerned that thousands of trumpet players and trombone players and French horn players are now going to come to the shop and say, hey, I'll take a polishing cloth, number one, and two, I've got this situation with my landlord, and I was hoping maybe you could look at the paperwork. You're in trouble, bro. You better get your hourly weight together, because you're going to have another office with, put on a suit and tie and do all that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is a thing. It's like two things you never do is tell people that you know something about computers, or that you're an attorney.
And you know both, and you do both.
Well, a little bit, yeah. But then all these people, these high school friends from 35 years ago. Yeah, so I had this restraining order. It's true. So,
that's funny.
Yeah, we'll wait for those emails to come in. But no, it was a lot of fun. And I should mention, I talked about Robert Coomber here. And if we had 4 hours to do the interview, I did want to mention before we wrap up that the team here at Bob Reeves is really why I'm able to do what I'm able to do. And Coomber, we talked about with the retail thing, and we joked about the polishing cloths. But Jose, who's been here 38 years, cranking out stock mouthpieces.
Wow.
I mean, you can't get more consistent than that. Brett Kendall, my partner, he's the craftsman here. He's the one who apprenticed with the custom mouthpiece making with Bob.
Nice.
And he is running the shop when I'm doing all this fuddy-duddy fun stuff, recording podcasts and things. And Andrew and Spencer, we have the best team on the planet. So I just want to shout out to them, because
it's a brilliant man that surrounds himself with people who are as good or better than he is. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you recognize your strengths, the dulcet tones that you put out over the podcast airs, and your weaknesses, and you've surrounded yourself with people that pick up the slack where it's needed. And the shop's reputation and the gear's reputation, I think, speaks for itself after 50 years. How long?
We're on 58.
58.
Yeah, 58 years.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
Yeah, we got to stick around for another 58. So, Vinny, thank you so much. Can't wait to hang again.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for doing the heavy lifting on this one. And website, I mean, everyone knows BobReeves.com. I don't have anything else to plug for myself other than we have some great guests coming up, back to our regular programming next week. So everyone, BobReeves.com, hit that like and subscribe button. And Vinny, website, social media, folks should follow.
trumpetvinny.com. The really important part is /shop. That's where you can buy this very t-shirt. Not this one, because I've worn it a bunch and you probably don't want it. Although, we could do the game worn, gig worn shirt.
Gig worn shirts. There's a huge market in that.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. For Philadelphia Eagles and Titans and Kansas City Chiefs and all, not so much for Trumpet Vinny. But trumpetvinny.com. And then it's basically just Vinny and the Hitmen on all the socials. We've got, TikTok and Instagram, and it's just, good God. And we're available now on all the streaming platforms. And so we're trying, man. 14-piece band, huge moneymaker. Wink. Thank you so much for supporting us.
And we'll have links to all of those. Yeah, all of those. Right. And I mean, since you did all the heavy lifting, do you want to have the honor and taking us out?
I will. I got two things to say. First of all, go be awesome, which you're doing a great job of. And let's go make some music. You ready?
You're a pro at this. It usually takes me like half an hour to do a 2-minute intro.
We'll see. John Snell is the already. And they just started cutting my lawn outside, so you'll get that in the background. Here we go, 3, 2, slide it. John Snell is the